Hello, everybody. It's Deb and Heather, and we are here for episode 27 of Reluctantly Woo Woo. So we call it Reluctantly Woo Woo because we like to touch on those things that seem a little bit outside of your normal scope of belief, but turns out that they work. So we love to talk about spiritual practices, metaphysics, a lot of crazy stuff. And today should be interesting. I'm going to get I don't even actually know what's going to be revealed. So Heather's going to tell us about back injury and the how, the why. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about some woo-woo stuff here that I know that some people watching may be like, y'all are crazy. And that's fine. Ouch. That's fine. Where we're like, and I will be saying ouch occasionally because I have a back injury, and we're going to be talking about the backstory of this because it is, part of the big thing. So, and Deb, I haven't told Deb any of this, so this is why we're doing this here, just to hear. So last weekend, I participated in a plant medicine ceremony, and specifically ayahuasca. So ayahuasca is an entheogen. Most people like to refer to it as a psychedelic, but an entheogen is typically a plant origin that's used in religious, spiritual contexts for the idea of healing. Right? And so I'm not going to get all of the technical things right, but what it does is it basically can go into your system and see what needs to be healed. And it makes changes in your brain, changes in your body, and it is powerful stuff. And it's something that is not for the faint of heart by any stretch of the imagination. And it is, it's something that you need to be called to do. Like, you really need to feel like this is something that's calling you. I first heard about ayahuasca in 2012. I remember exactly where I was standing, and my friend Rolf, we were at a Tony Robbins leadership retreat, and it was at the end of the day. And my friend Rolf, this guy that I had just met, he was telling me, we were standing at this bar area, and he was telling me about how he did this thing called ayahuasca in the jungle in Peru. And he's like, one ceremony is like 10 years of therapy. And I was like, sign me up, because I like to get things done quickly, right? So it took a few years before I was able to find some groups to be able to do this. And I've been to Costa Rica a couple of times. And so all said and done, I've sat with the medicine I know exactly how many times, because I journal all the time about it. So I've done it 32 times.
32?
32. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of people ask, they're like, why do you do this so much? Like, how come you just don't go once and done? Like, doesn't it heal everything? No, there's no one magic bullet that heals everything. And this girl had some shit she has had to work through, and everything's a spiral, right? Like, you get to this layer and you're like, okay, I got this now. Now I'm this person, and now I want to up level and work on the next level. Right. And so one, go back for that, but two, also because I do energy work with people, and I know you know this, Deb, I do not want to be one of those coaches or energy healers who doesn't have their shit together. And there's a lot of them in the world, right, who are a hot mess, but they'll work on everybody else. And I refuse to be that type of person who isn't willing to go deeper, in my work than the people that I'm working with. Right? So I feel like for me, because I'm doing energy work on people a lot, it's so imperative for me to keep going and cleaning out. And again, it's not for everybody. Not everybody is called for it. It just happens to be a thing that I really love, and I can see the results of. Right? Okay, so that's the preference. So I was going to this retreat this past weekend, and I, at this point, was like, I'm probably not going to partake because I had 6 people going with me, and I wanted to be able to just be there for them. Well, as it usually happens.
I was going to say, I feel like I've heard a lot of, I wasn't planning to, and then you do stories.
Mm-hmm. So it usually happens. The medicine, when we make decisions to make changes in our lives, things start happening to line you up with that. And so about a week and a half before it, I'm starting to swirl in these negative loops and thoughts of not good enough, not smart enough, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And the biggest one was I'm not, I can't grow my business and to reach more people, because I won't be able to handle it. Like physically, I won't be able to handle it, because in the past, when I had my bakery, I had Lyme's disease and adrenal fatigue, and I would ask for help, and my business partner would be like, "You're strong, you can handle it." All the while, she had a nanny and a housekeeper. She was never in there full time. She was never in there, and then when she was taking over, she was like, "Oh, I'm having so-and-so help me with this. And I'm having so-and-so help me with this." And I'm like, "Girl, I literally almost passed out in front of a customer. And you were like, oh, you'll be fine." So like, and all growing up, I've had this, I asked for help, and it's all been like, you can handle it. You're strong. And I think that a lot of women can relate, of like, you're strong enough, you can do this. And asking for help has been such a challenge, because we've been conditioned, right? That like, we need to be strong. And I don't know about you, Deb, but for me, I get this too. I've had in the past, like men be like, "Oh, you're so strong, you don't need anybody." And so they're like, "I don't feel like you need me." And then when I ask them for help, they're like, "Well, you're a strong woman, you could do it." And I'm like, right. So I'm really struggling with this going into the week of like, crap, like I'm feeling like there's some major up leveling happening here, and I got to deal with this. But I don't want to, like, I don't want to drink. I don't want like drink the medicine, but I'm like, okay. So the first night I go in and I'm like, okay, I'm going to drink the first night with the intention of working through releasing this, this whole thing of being tired and afraid that if I get bigger, then I'll be tired and won't be able to handle it. And so the funny thing is I know we've talked about this, or you and I have at least talked about this, is like the thing that we're always afraid of is what we're feeling the whole entire time anyway, right? Like, I'm afraid if I talk to this person, I'm going to feel this way, but you're feeling a low grade expression of it, right? And so just go and do it so you can get rid of the fear, right? So I've always had this like low grade, like tired stuff, but I'm just afraid of getting too tired. So, sorry. I drink the medicine. And typically what happens is drink, and it takes a little bit for the medicine to come on. And a lot of times the shaman for a second cup, meaning like to come and drink some more, because the second cup is usually when things get really activated. And not always. Some people, the first cup and they're done and they're going off to the races doing their work. But I went up for the second cup and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this, because this stuff does not taste great by any stretch of the imagination. And so I go up and get my second cup. I sit down and I'm like, I really don't want to drink this. Like, because it's like, I know what's happening, what's going to come. And I start to drink it and I'm like, like doing everything I can to hold it down. And I drank like a quarter of a cup and I was like, I just can't. And you can't get down any of this. But I felt like, oh, what I just drank was enough. So I lay down, I fall asleep, and then I wake up to like, so when you do the medicine, there's different things that can happen for you. You can have purging in your body in different ways. You can shake, you can yawn, you can burp, you can fart, you can poop, you can vomit. Right?
Sounds like a good time.
Right? You can, so you have a body experience. You can have what they call a Consulta, which is where you just hear a voice in your head. You know it's not yours, and this is like this conversation. And I typically, I typically get the body shakes, like my body is shaking like crazy, like I'm having a convulsion, and I'll hear things. Other things that can happen are visions. And that's why a lot of people, when they do things like this, they think that everything is all about visions. And then they're like, I didn't have any visions. That doesn't happen for everybody, right? It's psychedelics, like mushrooms, those kind of things definitely like tend to be more like psychedelic, like visionary. Ayahuasca is not always like that. And then you can have where you drink and you go to sleep and you wake up at the end of the ceremony and you're like, oh, nothing happened. But the medicine knew that what was having to happen to you was so strong that she just knocks you out. Those are what I prefer. Most people are like, I don't want, like, nothing happened. I'm like, dude, I will take that over purging any day and night. So anyway, I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I start shaking, and I'm shaking. And one of my friends was a volunteer, and I look over to her and I'm like, can you come hold my hand? Because I just needed something to ground me. Mm-hmm. And then one of my other friends who was also volunteering, so one was holding my hand down at my hip level, and the other one, my hand was like above my head because I was lying down. She grabbed my hand and was above my head level. And so my two friends are holding my hands, and these are just powerhouse women holding my hands, and I could just feel this grounded, like, like I'm like, holy crap, like this is some power, just like, moving all through me. And then one of our other friends, they came over and put her hand on my sternum, and it was like, just the way that the four of us were connected, I was just like, holy crap, like this is massive. Like it was just felt so powerful to me. I don't know what was happening. My body's shaking, but it was like just this like feminine power that was moving through me. And then the shaman came over and started singing an Icaros. I always say it wrong. Icaros. Yeah, I think I got that right. Which is these songs that they sing that are these healing songs. And different types of ceremony are different. Sometimes he'll sing it to the whole group, and sometimes he'll sing it to specifically to one person. So he's singing this healing song to me. And as he's singing it and it's like winding down, my body is finally like, okay. And it relaxes. And I'm feeling like, okay. Now let me say before this, what I didn't say was I had the runs like crazy. I'm always able to make it to the bathroom, right? But like, I just kept going to the bathroom. So my body settles down. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom. And I get up and go to the bathroom, and I'm carrying my bucket with me in case I have to purge. And I go in the bathroom.
And that sounds like such a grand time. I wonder why I haven't tried it yet.
And I go in the bathroom, and again, it's just liquid coming out of my bottom. Okay. And I'm just like, I put my head down in the bucket, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And then all I hear is this, and that's the lie. And then these 3 big purges. I'm like, whoa, like puke just coming out of me. It was crazy, Deb. Like I literally was like, I could feel this stuff. I mean, obviously I'm puking, right? But it was like they say that when you physically purge, like it means that there's a lie coming out of your body. Right? It's belief that we've felt for so long, and it just is exiting. And it was so massive because it's this been lie that I've been like so running away from being tired and not like wanting to be overworked. And I'm like, blah, and I just read recently they call it double platinum when you have it coming out both ends. And I was like, that's the first time in all my 32 ceremonies that I've ever had that happen. And so, right. But I was always on the toilet. I was fine. I have some friends who wear diapers, and I'm like, no, I will not wear a diaper. Like
depends. They just wear adult diapers.
Yeah. So I won't, because I'm like, I will make it to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. I finally I'm able to like after it all comes out of me, it was like, oh my gosh, that felt so good. And then I go back to my bed, and I'm still shaking and shaking and shaking. And so the ceremony's like over at this point, and it's still just like moving through me. And the shaking, I think it like how when animals experience trauma and they like shake it off, like that's what's happening. So I'm laying in bed and I'm shaking. And then one of my friends was walking by, and I like asked him, I was like, can you just hold me? Because I am like, I can't stop shaking, and I need, it's like an anxiety blanket or something, like I didn't have anxiety, but I just couldn't stop shaking. I need something to ground me. So he just like held me and like, until I like was able to calm down. And I didn't go to bed till like 7 o'clock in the morning. Like I ended up like it was just a long night. Right. So I am like processing this whole, like this lie of like being afraid that if I build my business and if I impact more people, I'm going to be exhausted all the time. I know it's come out of me, but I don't know what that specifically looks like. Like, how is that going to like work out in my real everyday life? Right. So now then, that was Friday night. We had the rest of the weekend. I didn't really do much medicine the rest of the weekend because I was like, dude, I got what I needed Friday night. Like it was really big for me. So then flash forward to Tuesday, and I was on the phone with a client, and I hung up and I stood up. And as soon as I stood up, I went to bend over to grab one of my puppy's toys, and it was literally like the commercial where you're like, oh, my back. And I couldn't straighten up. And from then I was literally like brought to my knees in pain. And I have never experienced that before. And I've had a ton of back pain from injuries, but this was just like I don't know what happened, but my back just completely seized up. So I'm in like massive pain. I go to the chiropractor, and essential oils. Like I'm doing all of the things, right, to help release it. I'm doing energy work on myself. I'm running my Healy on myself. And like this shit's not moving. Like my back is stuck. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm in massive pain. Like I canceled all my calls, which I don't like. I never cancel calls with clients. Like I am very, like, I will do everything I can. Like, it doesn't matter what's happening. Like I will be on my calls with my clients. But I was like, I can't. Like I just literally can't. And so Thursday and today, I had this this business intensive that I had scheduled way before. I knew it was. I scheduled it and then realized it was right after this ayahuasca weekend. Like forgetting about the ayahuasca weekend, and then I scheduled it. I was like, crap, like that's a lot in 1 week, but I can't reschedule either of them, right? So I this woman who she's a business coach, but she also is an intuitive and an energy healer. So they have these spotlights, and I'm on this intensive, and I'm like on a Zoom call. I'm like, I can't turn my camera on because literally you're just going to see me like making all these faces because every move was excruciating. And so I get to my one-on-one with her, and as we were talking, like most people were talking about like very here, do this and this. But she's like, can we do some healing? And I was like, yes, please. And as we're talking, she says, I just am getting that your body is saying, I'm so tired. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's literally, and I told her that's literally what just happened this past weekend, and that I was releasing. And she says, can we talk about some past life stuff? Now, you know how like I'm a little bit like, not sure about past life stuff. Like some people in the woo-woo world are all in it, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, right? So I'm like, okay, sure. And she's like, I'm just getting that you made a commitment when you came down here that you would to do things on your own, so that you can learn resiliency and to, oh my gosh, now of course I'm forgetting it. And to make decisions, like make not right decisions to learn from that. Make decisions that aren't the right decisions to learn from them. And I'm like, oh my God, like all of it sounded like 100% correct. And like, I was just like, holy.
And she didn't really know, she doesn't know you. Yeah, I love that.
Doesn't know me at all, and she's like, and there's like, I'm just getting that it's like from your mother's line that there's a lot of like not asking for help. And I'm like, yes. And I'm just looking down because I'm trying to pull up a text that I sent somebody to say it. So she's like, stuff in your mother's line. And I'm like, oh my gosh, 1,000%. Because that's what I've talked about so much is in my whole healing journey. It's like finding women who can nurture me and help. Because I don't feel like, whenever I ask for help for things growing up, it's like, you can figure it out on your own. And yeah, I can. I'm smart enough. And it's really nice to have somebody come alongside of you and say, here, let me help you. Right? Mm-hmm. I cried thinking about it because I just didn't get that. And it's no fault to them. Right. But they like the women in my life couldn't do that for me. And so, so she's like, can we resolve and complete the contract that I always have to bear it alone and choose the wrong things as a lesson? Seriously. And like on a metaphysical level, right, lower back pain, right, has a lot to do with money. Okay. And right now I'm just in this place of like, wanting to up level and like, wrestling with some things. Holy heck, Deb. And so she does this energy work on me. And literally within 10 minutes, I was able to stand up like without slithering out of my bed and walk without feeling like I needed a cane. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's funny because as soon as you were going into the story, I'm like, your body was like, fucking take a rest. Just take a little rest and think about this. So made you cancel your calls for a day, evaluate this.
Right.
Yeah, that is super, it's super interesting. I love this stuff. And I love like when someone doesn't know shit about you and hits it right on the head, that to me is like such proof of I don't know how the hell this stuff works. As we always say, also don't know how this stupid thing works, but it does.
But it does. Right. And so you know, she does this healing and I'm like, holy crap, I'm able to walk. And like, another lesson in all this was, and I said to her, I said, I'm really learning to ask for help. And like asking, you know, for people like, you know, and they're like, what do you need? And I'm like, I need this, or if I didn't need something, but I asked my boyfriend to come with me last night because I was going to my body worker last night. And could I get there by myself? Absolutely. Right. But would it be nice to have somebody there? Yes. And so, because at that point I really couldn't walk. So I could have gotten there, but it was you know, hard. And so I asked him to come. And he was like, yes, of course I'll be there. And so I had said to her about how I'm just learning, like this whole past week is like really asking for help. And she was like, I'm just getting that, like, he's here to teach you a lot of lessons. And I'm like, oh, well, that's for sure. Like, I've talked about this relationship many times. Like, I'm learning so much from it. He and I are night and day, right? And as much as like sometimes we both want to kill each other, like just learning so much from each other, you know, about that. Because if I had somebody who's totally like me, like that'd be boring.
Totally.
Right. I mean, and same thing for him. Right. So she's like, she's saying all this stuff. And I'm just like, you don't know me. Like, how are you saying this? Right. So we go get body work done. And it was painful, really, really painful. And he's like super locked up. And then last night, you know, I went to bed, woke up, and it was like more locked up than it was yesterday. But then as the day was going on, and this morning I took Charlie for a walk, and I like just felt like I was in so much pain, and like just everything was super painful. But this woman was talking about working with her one-on-one, and I decided, like, I've never worked with somebody, like I've had coaches, but I've never worked with somebody specifically who does business coaching and energy healing and will work with me one-on-one, right, to help me with my business. And I've done coaches that like you can work on some things, but like this is very specific, right, to uplift my business. I've never made this kind of investment. I've done a ton of courses that are like $10,000 courses that are like, here, just do our signature program and you don't get anything, right? This is like one-on-one attention, like hardcore, like going to push me beyond anything that's comfortable for me. And once I made the decision, it's like, here's my card. I was able to start walking again. Like, it's so bizarre. And like, I mean, you can see I'm wincing every once in a while because there's certain movements, you know, that are bad. But if you saw me literally like this morning or yesterday, I'm like night and day. Like, it is unbelievable to me how. And so my boyfriend last night when we were driving to the body worker, and he's like, well, when I was telling her about what happened with her, he's like, well, how do you know it just wasn't time? Like, you know, it was just the time. And I'm like, I don't.
I know, well, I think you subscribe to the same theory of, I don't know, there's no coincidences. Synchronicities, yes. Coincidences are, I mean, it means coincide. That's the word.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, but I'm like, it's time. I'm like, it can't, where I don't buy that it was just time is because how is it like, usually with the time, it's like kind of like this gradual thing. This was like within 10 minutes, I was able to like stand around and walk.
Right.
Right. Here's where the reluctant, sorry, I'm just looking for Charlie.
Yeah.
The reluctant part, poor little guy, it's been raining here all day and he just wants to go outside and play. But the reluctant part on my end, right, is like, you know, I don't know if you know, but like growing up, you'd hear about these revivals and, you know, people go and it's like, you're healed, you know, and the people are able to walk stuff, right? That happens. It does.
It's funny that you say that because I was just thinking several years ago now. Gosh, I can't even remember. Early on I was shortly after Chloe was born, I was freelancing PR marketing stuff. And I remember this guy wanted to hire me to do a project and he was basically like, oh yeah, I see the comments in there. He was one of these like born again kind of walks into a room, heals people. And I so did not buy into this at the time. I thought this was like all a bunch of wackiness. Like, you know, this guy's full of crap, blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to do the project. So I quoted the price so damn high that I was like, he's not going to sign on to do this. And then they freaking hired me. And I was like, oh shit, I don't know that I really wanted to do it. Because at the time I just thought this, I mean, this is why we call this Reluctantly Woo Woo, is I thought this is some bullshit. Like this can't be. But then I had to promote this event. So I went to the event and watched some things happen that kind of was like, I was in the camp of, I'm going to make some excuses about why that might not have been real, or, like I just did not want to believe in that kind of stuff. Whether I believe in it in that extent in the way that this guy was promoting it, I'm not sure, but I do believe in this stuff, and that's not a coincidence. And I mean, I know we've shared before the example where I had lost my voice for like a week straight, and then you're like, well, do you want me to do some work around it? And I was like, you can do that? And bam, and I could talk again. I mean, it's not a coincidence. 7 days of I can't talk at all. The second you do some specific work around that particular issue, all of a sudden I can talk.
Right.
That can't just be like, oh, this was the magical time.
Right. And like sometimes, I struggle with this whole thing, because then people are like, well, I did all this stuff and I didn't get healed, so it doesn't work. Right. And so then that begs the question of, okay, what truly is healing? Right. Like, because for some people, what if healing is you passing from this earthly plane? What if that's the most healing thing that can happen for you, is that you no longer live in your physical body?
I mean, I agree. And I've been really deep diving into that whole idea of letting go and surrender, and that sometimes the outcome you wish for isn't the outcome you're meant for right now.
Yeah.
You have to kind of, and what's interesting is the concept of letting go. The second you let go of your attachment to a particular outcome, and then allow whatever the outcome is, is a lot of times that's when you get the healing you've been seeking.
Right.
But you can't do that as a means to an end. It's such a circular catch-22.
Right.
You really have to believe it and trust. And I don't know. And like you said, I mean, it's not always immediate. You said it still does hurt, right? Yes. But I'm willing to bet tomorrow it will be even better, because you're making the steps. Maybe right now, maybe there's still a little bit of resistance in there. Maybe there's a little bit of, you're like, oh gosh, should I have made this investment? Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you're still surrendering a little, and there is still a matter of, I think you've used the example before, if you break a bone, it is not going to heal overnight. Like that's a little crazy. Like it's not usually quite that instantaneous. Like your physical body still needs some time to remold or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, if everything is a vibration, right? And like when we get into matter, it's still vibration, but it's just so much more of it, like a denser vibration. Mm-hmm. I want to read this quote though that I got from Matt Kahn, who if anybody's never heard of him, he's an author. He has a great book called what's it called? Everything is Here to Help You. And Whatever Arises, I was looking at him, Whatever Arises, love that. Like phenomenal books. But two things that he said in his newsletter the other day. First is awakening cannot satisfy you. It frees you from the need to be satisfied.
I like that.
Right? So many times people like go into this work and like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to do this work. I'm going to do this plant medicine and it's going to heal everything. No, it's not. There's still going to be shitty things that happen in the world. Like that is part of the physical world. Right?
It's part of the experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I can't hold my glasses. I can't even see. She said, what you need is not always what you want. Right.
Yeah.
So true.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. And it goes back to what your gal was saying in the, again, whether you believe in past lives, your soul's karma, whatever, sometimes there's things, if you do subscribe to this principle, and if you don't, you probably can still see evidence of this as a valid principle. At least I think. Maybe there's a karma you have to fulfill in this particular go round. and you may not have a lot of say over that. I like the concept of releasing that soul contract, right? Like maybe once you identify what it is, you can, I've heard a lot of different teachers practice that. I don't know a ton about that, but ask for a renegotiation of that contract.
Right. We're like, okay, we're done. I'm done with this contract, right? So, and some of this stuff, again, where it's woo-woo, like I was talking to my body worker guy last night. He's like, I have this whole contract thing. I heard some people talk about it. Like, what does that even mean? I'm like, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. And as soon as she said that about like, you know, you made this commitment to go at it alone. And I was like, oh my gosh, like literally when I didn't even think about this till just now. Holy crap. So at the end of ceremony weekend, he like have a closing circle, and he has you like think about all your memories from when, like from like, your earliest memory. And for me, everything that I remember as a kid was doing stuff alone. Riding my bike around the neighborhood by myself, being at home, swimming in the pool by myself. Like everything was by myself. Like I don't have these fun, like, oh my gosh, when I was a kid, I was just me and my friends playing. Like I have a couple of memories of like that, but majority of it was this overwhelming sense of loneliness. Like if there's one emotion that I had to pick from my childhood, absolutely loneliness. Right? And so it just makes sense. And like, even though I don't totally believe in like past life stuff, like does it make sense? Sorry, let me see if I can do this. Okay. Does it make sense that, yeah, like I've done all these things by myself and I am so ready to not do that? Yes. You know, whatever, you know? So right. This other thing that Matt Kahn said, and I think is really great talking about like, you know, the healing may not look the way that we want it to, because I did not want it to be that I'm going to be laid out on my back for a couple of days and not be able to do things. Like that's not how I wanted. I thought I'd purge it out and I'd be done. It was part 2 of this lesson, Heather. And there might be part 3 and part 4 and part 5, right? He says, true healing isn't always a matter of getting what you want, but receiving all that you need to help you transform at your most optimal capacity. There's a certain amount of time you are meant to spend under specific personal conditions in various states of consciousness. By being at certain levels of consciousness for specific periods of time, you build up the necessary pressure to inspire the growth and expansion needed to guide you along to your next highest level of consciousness. This is why everything is the way that it is.
Right? I like that stuff. That to me, it always does. It resonates well with me. And that is the kind of stuff that helps me get through things that are challenging. Is I don't know if console myself is the right word, but there's some benefit to be had out of what you're going through. So when you can say, okay, yeah, the physical pain sucks, the limitations, the not, having to cancel things that you wanted to do, whatever, all of that sucks, but there is a benefit that's coming from it, Yeah. And again, surrender is so huge on my radar right now, but surrendering to it, and listening to the signs. I mean, sometimes it's like they're knocking you over the head, right?
Right.
Or I mean, maybe there were some much more subtle signs for you along the way, and you were like, no, I'm supposed to do this all by myself because I'm the strong girl. Until it was like, no, you're not.
And that's why, for me personally, why I love doing ayahuasca ceremonies, because one, it really is like, you get so much out of one ceremony, like, and it can knock you on your ass for a bit, right? But when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, it's normal for you to feel depleted and like a little bit afterwards, because all this old crap is being taken out of you, right? And like, at least for me, I'm always like, okay, got that. Like, because when you go through that struggle, you're like, okay, I know what that is. Got that. Okay? And it's just a visible, noticeable change that you're like, okay, yeah, I purged it out or whatever. Mm-hmm. I just got this text from a friend who said that he ran into another one of the people that went with me this weekend. And he said he looked good, and I definitely felt like he was a more personable person today. And the person who's texting me doesn't believe in, like, he's like, I will never do any of that stuff. He gets high all the time, but he's like, I will never, never do like that kind of ceremony stuff, blah, blah, blah. But like to see a visible difference, right, in this mutual friend, like, and I saw him today too, and I was like, holy crap, like your face is lighter. Like, and he's like, I feel so much different. He's like, I'm like, things are just rolling off my back.
Was it his first time?
It was his first time. Yeah.
See, every time we talk about it, I get more and more intrigued. It's definitely something I'm going to do at some point, and it would definitely make for an interesting episode to talk about my first time doing it. I think for me, I'm super curious about all the things you share, the benefits and stuff like that, but there's a huge fear factor in, maybe part of it is fearing what I'll discover. You know, I don't really want to sit around and puke my guts out either. That doesn't sound like a good time. Hate throwing up.
And that might not happen for you. I mean, there's plenty of people who are like, no, I never purged that way at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's the thing. And then this is why, like, I feel like you mentioned surrender, right? When I was sitting there shaking, right? And I tell everybody this, anybody that I bring with me, anybody goes the first time, I'm like, no matter what happens, just breathe and say thank you. Right. And so I'm sitting there shaking and I'm laying on my back, just like in an open position. Right. And it's natural to want to like curl up and go into fetal position. Right. But just to open up and just thank you. But it's more like, and I'm like, I know, like nutcase, right? But I'm like, just the more that you surrender, the faster it's going to come out. And the more you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to purge. I don't want to purge, right? It's just let it out. And I'm not saying that there haven't been times, like I've told you, that I have purged for hours on end. And there's just a lot of stuff, like clearing my stuff, clearing stuff for other people. That's the way that it is for me. But I know some people who like never have experiences like that. And every single person though says, oh my gosh, I felt so amazing after that purge came out.
Right. I mean, not even including ayahuasca or anything like that. I feel like whenever I'm in some situation where my body wants to vomit, it always feels better once I finally let it happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same way with diarrhea, with having to fart.
With having to fart. Exactly. Just let it out.
Exactly. The funny thing about like these kind of situations is everybody's like, okay, we got all stuff like coming out. Like we feel better. Like, you know, like you have this connection with people that you're like, whatever, I can walk around looking like, you know, my hair's all over the place, whatever, because nobody cares, you know?
Right. That's funny.
I just like, the more I explore this stuff, the more I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that reluctance part of me will ever go away. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think there's value in having some skepticism. I mean, I wouldn't advise anybody blindly go into anything that we're talking about. Certainly, you know, like do your research, do what's right for you, for sure. Reluctance is probably wise in some situations, right?
Right. Yeah, but it's like the more that I see, and just seeing like, you know, having had, you know, I've gone through enough of these that I can see people the before and after. Okay. And it's just like, holy crap, like this shit, like the energy work, it really does make a difference. And I don't want to believe that, Deb. Like I really don't. I really don't, but I can't deny it because I just see it so much. And I tell people oftentimes, I'm like, just take a selfie of yourself before. Right? Because I've seen these grown men who were just like, it's so, you know, who just like afterwards, their face is so soft, right? And they just like, it's not that they haven't lost their manliness, right? That masculine energy, but it's a like softness that is so much more approachable. And it's like, you can just tell that they've shed like, you know, 100 pounds of trauma, and their guard is like, they're not wearing like that, like knight, and it's not a knight in shining armor. It's just this knight thing to like, you know, keep people away.
Yeah. Do you have, anything that you are allowed to share? Sorry, I'm looking at this comment too. Oh, cool.
And I know, Anabia, I'm always pronouncing your name wrong, and I apologize. But you know, we met at Rhythmia a few years ago.
Oh, cool. That's what I was just going to ask you. Like, do you have some resources if anybody's listening and is like, I'm curious? Because I mean, I know I'm curious. For anybody that watches us regularly and doesn't know, I live in Phoenix. You're in Charlotte. So as much as I would like to be like, bring me along to your next ceremony, it's not quite that simple. So like if I were looking for resources in my area, or anybody's looking for resources where they are, how do you know what's reputable? I mean, this is a risky thing to just be like, oh, I'm just going to go to Craigslist and here we go.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I personally, this is my standards, I would not participate in a group unless I knew that somebody had been there and can speak to it. Right? Because there are shitty shamans. Like,
well, in Arizona in particular, there was a huge case a few years ago where a bunch of people died.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it was a big deal. But they were in one of those sweat lodge tent situations, and I don't know the details. I shouldn't speak about it, but the guy went to, like, it was a crazy scene.
Right. Yeah, and there's, I think on Netflix or something, there's some show about this Kentucky, guy and blah blah blah. So always, go with somebody that is reputable, that that's been there and that can speak to it. It is not legal to do in the United States, and so on here I will say that there are great places in Costa Rica, Peru. I've been to Rhythmia, which is in Costa Rica, so I can speak to that one. I have this experience. Soltara is another one I have not personally been to, but I know people who have. Well, I know one person who has, and then I've heard other podcasts and stuff. So, and Soltara is a great place to go. They speak very, very highly of it. So those are two places that I can speak specifically to it. There's places in Peru. I personally, because I'm a little bit of a princess, I'm like, I don't want to go sit in a jungle somewhere where like I'm worried about scorpions or something. Like I want to do it in a frou-frou place. So that's, more my preference to go somewhere upscale. For people who are like, well, that's not feasible for me, reach out to me. And that's all I can say. Like, reach out to me and I can, help you find something. But again, it's not something that's legal to do it here in the US, except for, actually, I can't say that. It is not legal unless it's set up as a church. There are churches that it's their sacrament to do. So that for them, it is legal. And if you're a part of that church, then you can do that.
Okay.
I will say legally.
Okay.
Right?
And we do not give medical advice. Disclaimer.
Not at all. Yeah. So, and again, it's something that definitely has to call to you. And it's not for everybody. And it's not I do this once and all my problems are solved.
Right.
And
nothing really is like that.
Right. Nothing at all.
If anything promises that, that's where you should certainly be reluctant.
Right. Here's another suggestion. Glasses. I can't lean forward. That's probably. Can you read that, Deb?
I can, but I probably won't say it right. Ambiwasi in Colombia for this is your commenter, and then Rhythmia is the safest, she said.
Yeah. Oh, and Finca in Colombia too. I have a friend who's gone there. Yeah, so they can speak to those. Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. It has to, be called to you. And what I love about the shaman that I've been sitting with is that he is very much like the medicine is 70% or 30%. That you are the answer. Like you have the answers in you. It's not like you have to keep going back time and time again to find the answers. Like I said, for me, it's more of a what are the touch-ups? And because I do energy work, I just want to keep myself clean. Like, when I told my boyfriend about not partaking in the next 2 nights, and he's like, wow, you should have, that's why you're there. I'm like, dude, I've been doing this for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I'm not going in for this massive, I have all these massive things that have to be changed. It's I knew specifically what I was working on and that was it. Right. So yeah. Okay. So let's say
5 hats, she's saying, I think.
Okay.
I mean, initially it almost looked like it said shats, but it sounds fitting based on what you describe.
Yeah. So yeah, pink is another one. So it's not, again, at the end of the day, the ceremony, see, this is a big thing. And I should have said this earlier, is that ceremony is part of it. right? It's a small part of it. It's like what happens afterwards, the integration is the key. The lessons that you're going to keep coming and keep coming. Are you willing to listen to them? And that for me was the biggest lesson of, okay, I get this huge thing of I'm releasing this, like I'm tired. And then it's like, okay, and like, we're really going to like nail this into you, right? Of tired, asking for help. And are you really ready to up level like you say that you are? Right? Because you can purge the stuff and be like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to not be tired. Blah, 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 I'm ready to build my business. Okay, really? Are you going to put your money where your mouth is and make a commitment to really step up?
Yeah.
Shit, I don't want to do that. And I totally want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be pushed out of my comfort zone. And I know I need to be pushed out of my comfort
Right. And let's not glaze over the fact that you accidentally booked these things consecutively and wound up with this particular person one-on-one coaching you. I mean, again, no coincidences.
No coincidence at all. Yeah. So watch out, world.
Yeah.
And the other crazy thing was too, listen to this. So I've been really like thinking about like, what direction do I want to go in with my business? I love the work that I do one-on-one with people and stuff, but like, it's usually like, I work with everybody. Don't have this like super, like, this is the niche, this is what I want to work with. But I've been feeling this inkling about really like working specifically with women, like empowering women in their relationships with their money and their relationship with their business, right? So that they can be empowered because, and I don't want to come across as like anti-men at all. It's because I love men. And, women have historically been in a place where we've been dependent upon men. And, as a single woman, as a single mom, right? Like it can be easy to get caught up in this whole, like, depending on a man, right? For whether it's for alimony, right? Or for like, oh, I'm going to stay home and raise the kids. Now I'm depending on this man, right? And women can easily lose themselves and feel disempowered. And so here's the irony is that then today, while I was on this call, a girl that I know reached out and was like, hey, like, can we talk? Like, I'm really struggling today. Can we talk? And without going into the context of the conversation, when we got on the phone, there's some stuff going on in her relationship. And she's like, I feel just so disempowered. It's like, he owns this and he owns this and he owns this. And it's like, I need my own stuff and I've lost me. I was like, okay, well, I'm talking about helping and reaching women. And then it's like, here you go.
So many signs. They are screaming at you.
I know. And yet I'm still afraid to like really claim it. So
you'll get there.
Right.
I mean, awareness of it, I think, is a huge, huge part. Like now you're like, oh, okay. I finally hear it. Getting it.
Yeah. And the only reason I say it out loud is just to be, called out on it. And to like say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in a place of like, yeah, I'm like, when people are like, like no fear. No, there's fear. And do it anyway.
It's just information.
Right.
Fear is information.
Right.
And as you said, I think earlier, it's usually telling you what you need to face.
Exactly. So. Yep. And so just surrender.
Yep. Surrender. So. All right. It's a good place to leave it.
That's the story. So we will pick up. We kind of left off on our boundaries. We were going to talk about boundaries part 2, but this came up and, who cares? Not that who cares about boundaries, but you can listen to these in whatever order you want. So we'll talk about boundaries part 2 next week.
Yep.
And how to set boundaries, which kind of definitely goes into the whole being empowered thing. And as usual, if you have any questions, if you feel like you're in a place of like, okay, I need somebody to work with because I know that there's some clarity that I want to have an experience. Oh, thank you. Sandy said, awesome, Heather. And she was on the journey with me. And that, it's been amazing. But if you're like, I need like someone to hold my hand and help me on the journey, like that's what we're here for. Deb can do energy work with you. I can do coaching and energy work with you. Like, and we both are like, we know this stuff works, but we're still reluctant about it. So we're on the same page,
Yeah.
We see that it works. So reach out, shoot us a message, and we'd love to be able to help you with that. So
absolutely. All right.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.